Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to see about what is impact test. In impact test, there are two types, ISOT and Sharpie test. The difference between these tests also seen in this video. Before we see about impact test, we see about impact load. Impact load, also known as shock load or suddenly applied load. Materials show different properties when tested under an impact load. A material will behave differently under an impact test compared to how it behave under a gradually applied loads like tensile or compression load. Next, we are moved to the topic of impact test. Impact tests are used to determine the ability of the material to withstand the impact load. Testing standards of impact test, Sharpie test, ISO 179, ASTM D6110, ISO test, ISO 180, ASTM D256. In impact test, testing capacity 1 to 300 foot bound. Temperature of the impact test is minus 320 Fahrenheit to 2000 Fahrenheit. Types of test by impact testing: toughness, fracture resistance, impact strength, impact resistance. Types of materials by impact testing: ceramic, wood, polymers, composites, short rods, and plastics. Impact test evaluate toughness of the material. In the final result of the test, we are going to find out the toughness of the material. When we know the toughness of the material, then you calculate impact test of the material. Toughness means when the material meet the plastic deformation, how much energy the material absorb is known as toughness. There are two types of impact test, ISO test and Sharpie test. Both the impact test and are conducted in the same machine. The name of the machine is pendulum impact machine. This is the pendulum impact machine. In the center, one pendulum is there. The hammer is placed at the end of the pendulum. Under the machine, anvil is there. The specimen is placed on the anvil. The scale is attached to the top of the pointer. Energy markings are there in the scale. The required energy is directly marked using this scale. The working of the machine also same to the ISO test and Sharpie test. Working of the pendulum machine is the notch is created on the tested specimen and it is placed on the anvil. Set the pendulum hammer at appropriate height. This is known as hedge. When the hammer is released, the standard blow touched the material. In this stage, the material is absorbs some energy and braked. The energy absorbed by the specimen during impact measures its impact strength. The amount of energy absorbed depends on the physical nature of the materials. If the material is tough, it absorbs more energy. How much energy the material absorbed is depending on the physical strength. That physical nature is toughness. When the material is highly tough, is absorb more energy. Maybe the material is less tough, it absorb very low energy and break at low energy. ISOD and Sharpie test are different a dimension of the specimen and position of the specimen that is placed in the anvil of pendulum impact machine. First is specimen dimension. When we are going to test the material, cuboid specimen is taken. The ISO test, height of the specimen is 10, width of the specimen is 10, length of the specimen is 75 mm. For Sharpie test, the Height and width of the specimen is 10 mm. Length is 55 mm. The dimension of the specimen given in mm. The notch can be U or V shape. The length of the ISO test 75 mm, that is reduced to two portions. One portion is 47.5 mm, another portion is 27.5 mm. In middle line we created notch. The notch should be 2 mm depth. It should be 45-degree angle, 0.25 mm radius. At the same time, in Sharpie test, the length of the specimen is 55 mm, marked the center portion of the specimen. The V notch is created in that point. At same Sharpie test, V notch depth also 2 mm, angle is 45 degree, radius is 0.25 mm. The next difference is depending on the specimen position in anvil. In ISO test piece held vertically in an anvil, the 47.5 mm portion is going inside the anvil and it is clamped. 27.5 mm only to showing above the anvil. The surface and anvil center is meet at the same point. Clamping is very essential to the ISO test because the same sample is placed vertically. In Sharpie test, workpiece is placed horizontally in an anvil. Clamping is not essential in that place, but the V notch is placed opposite to the hammer conflict. This is the second difference of the ISO and Sharpie. Now we are released the pendulum. In ISO test, required striking energy is 170 joule. In Sharpie test, required striking energy is 300 joule. It is higher than the ISO test. Now the testing is ended. After that, we are going to see about how toughness of the impact test is calculated. This is the formula of the impact test. Toughness is equal to W into H minus H dash in kilogram per meter, where W is weight of pendulum in kilogram, H is the original height of the pendulum in meter, H dash is the swing height of the pendulum, which means height reached after breaking the specimen. It is given in meter. This is the formula we are calculating the toughness of the material. Application of the impact test. The key applications of impact test: automotive, aerospace, construction and packaging industries. In automotive industries, evaluate the safety component including bumpers, panels and window screens. In aerospace sector, test materials to ensure aircraft components. In construction field, it assesses the metals, fastens and concrete for resistance to harsh environments. For consumer goods and packaging, evaluate the plastics and packaging for drop resistance, energy and piping. It determines the low temperature toughness for valves and pipings. Defense and armor test. The ability of the armor plates and protective equipment to absorb energy from high speed projectiles. That's all about impact test. Thank you.